Hello everyone, my name's Chrissie Kelley and I'm currently Head of Species Management at Pensthorpe Conservation Trust in North Norfolk. I've been working in aviculture for over 30 years and been running or helping to run a number of conservation programmes since 2008. So for this project, I'm avicultural lead of a small team for this Norfolk Curlew recovery project. And we're responsible for incubation of eggs collected at MOD air bases and rearing of chicks all the way through to release at Wildken Hill and Sandringham Estate. So the presentation will cover aspects of rearing chicks that we use for the project, and hopefully we'll have plenty of time for discussion at the end. So the chicks are moved into rearing tanks once they've had time to fluff up after the exhausting process of hatching. And in these brooders, which we call Arnie tanks, we have a heat lamp at one end, and the chicks have a blanket that they do snuggle up in for the first couple of days. You know, it's soft and squidgy, so they can climb all over it and around it easily. It's also very easy to clean. Likewise with the mop that's provided for a bit of cover really. It's not very natural, but it can be easily cleaned and disinfected between the groups. So at this stage we have 4 chicks in a brooder at a time. And individual chicks are given a coloured numbered ring at hatch, and this will remain their identification right the way through to the time they have an ID flag fitted by the colleagues at the BTO. Dripping water gives an additional additional enrichment, and they're offered initially soaked pelleted diet ad lib, which can also be sprinkled on the moving water. We'll discuss more about diet a bit later on. So the chicks will grow fairly quickly, and they'll be transferred outside at around 5 days old. We weigh them on transfer, but not daily, and we like them to be over 55 grams before moving them out. But on average, they're around 70 to 80 grams when they move outside. So the outside facility for the project consists of 2 large polytunnels. Each one has an electricity supply. These polytunnels are 9 metres wide by about 30 metres long and covered with netting to keep the wild birds out. The steel surrounding the bottom is buried for vermin control, and each one has a porch where boots are changed to manage disease risk. So within each polytunnel, we construct a series of runs, each with a house that has a heat lamp. Initially, when transferred from the inside brooders, the chicks are kept within their group of 4, with a small run made from stockboard attached to each of the houses. Now these runs can then be expanded as the chicks grow to give them room to exercise. The kennels are also made from stockboard, which is a recycled plastic material, and we drill a hole in the top to hang a heat lamp inside, and they work well to both supply heat for brooding chicks when they're small and cool shade in the hot weather. You know, I'd just like to give a thanks to Nige Jarrett, Tan and the team at WWT for recommending these after their initial trial in 2019. I think they work really, really well. So we try to keep cohorts of chicks in groups of around no more than 10, but around 8 during this phase, and offer them plenty of food ad lib, oyster shell grit and water. Now curlew chicks are busy, and when not sleeping they're constantly foraging and picking up everything that moves. This has proved, I believe, to be an issue for some projects, with the chicks pulling up and eating dead grass that can lead to gut impaction. We'll talk about some more of the examples of health problems or health issues that we've seen in Sophie's workshop next. So I really want to focus on enclosure design and rearing techniques in this presentation. So diet, diet's key and something that we've been tweaking over the years. We use Lundy micro pellet, 35% protein, which is a complete diet and widely used for rearing waders of all sorts. However, we don't think that alone this is enough for curlews. And after some health issues in previous years, we're now supplementing this diet with AviPro and AviMix all the way through to transfer at the release site. This can be done when the pellet is wet, especially offered in the first few days by adding it to the water where that you soak the pellet in. But we found that chicks prefer dry pellet, and certainly once outside it's a lot less messy. So we add the supplements by spraying the food with water, so the supplement powder will stick to it. We do also offer some live food such as crickets and some mealworms, but do this with caution. They're expensive, they're non-native, and the birds can become very tame if given, obviously. Last year we also did trial a small sample of a different diet made in Holland by Meglis. This was mainly for added interest. It has dried shrimps and mealworms, which the curlews love. But again, we fed sparingly, mixing it in with the Lundy diet just for more interest for the birds. Obviously, encouraging live natural food into the enclosure is really helpful. But by planting insect attracting plants, but obviously we find it quite challenging to provide enough of that sort of habitat, especially when you've got many cohorts of birds coming through the same space. Those early clutches tend to get the best deal. So I'd just like to talk a little bit about stress and how to mitigate for this. We all know stress causes health problems, and it's not just for humans. Now, we found curlews, as all animals, have individual personality traits. Some are naturally highly strung, others bold or fairly chilled, some aggressive towards others within the group. So managing and mitigating stress factors in a captive situation is really important, obviously, and does lead to better health. So if we go through a few of the points that I've highlighted here. Heat. Now, curlews do seem to do better in wet conditions, and we found that especially steep increases of heat can cause stress, from one day to another. And with our setup, we have this sort of steel surround, which, when your curlew height doesn't let a lot of breeze flow through, so the heat can get quite intense in this situation. So last year we covered the polytunnel partially with shade netting, and this works quite well because the shade moves around the enclosures throughout the day. Space is also another factor to manage. Managing numbers of chicks with your available space to optimise exercise and foraging is one of the challenges for the Norfolk project, particularly as we have large numbers of chicks, sometimes over 80 in total. And we find that the stock board is really useful for creating divisions between cohorts, as well as within the group, as visual barriers within individual runs. This maximises available space and interest for the birds as they grow. We should try to avoid straight lines. So these mitigations can also reduce aggression between individuals, and we have numerous feeding stations dotted around of additional long areas of patches of grasses, things to keep the birds interested and away from each other a lot of the time. So human interaction is also another stress factor. And although, on the surface, curlews generally appear fairly calm around people, especially as young chicks, and then they naturally become more flighty and stressed by humans as they get older, towards fledging age. After some health issues in 2023, where we were catching birds quite regularly for various treatments and health checks, the healthy birds within that area could also become stressed. So we developed protocols where only one keeper is in with the curlews at any one time for routine husbandry tasks, always moving slowly and mindfully around the birds. Your keepers are really important as well at this stage, because it can be quite easy to forget yourself if there's two people managing the areas or where the birds are. So they might chat more or, make too much noise. So now we've made sure that the only time that there's more than one person in with the curlews is around catching. Now the thought behind this is that birds can then distinguish safe human interaction to a stressful situation, and so they're not constantly getting sort of cortisol spikes from increased perceived threat. So enrichment and management of the environment can also be helped by creating long areas of grass, flooding the ground, encouraging worms to the surface, running water, creating ponds or streams within the enclosure. Curlews do get bored and they're constantly, as I mentioned earlier, foraging. And so, much care is invested in enclosure maintenance, offering a change in the environment as they grow. So just before fledging, around 30 days old, the curlews are caught up and the first plastic ID ring taken off, and individuals are given unique colour combination of rings and flags. For the East of England project, this is a yellow ring on the right leg, a yellow flag and an orange ring on the left leg. Now this is really the first time the birds are handled, and they're given a quick health check by the vet at the same time. And then they're moved into the flight pens, all in one go. We do at this stage carefully take a couple of feathers for sexing. Although biometrically curlews are quite different, it's really good to know what sexes we've got throughout the project. So we have 3 flight pens, which are 6 metres wide by 18 metres long, constructed with 7-foot high wooden panels with Sinterflex mesh. And then each pen is covered with a soft hexamesh netting. So they're fairly long and thin, so the birds can practice flying, but they don't hurt themselves on the net, or can get up too much speed. The flight pens also have a pond in them, which allows less interaction with the curlews, who do naturally become wary and a bit stressed by human interaction over the next couple of weeks before they get released. So the pens have long grass with shorter rides mown through them, and they'll stay in the same cohorts where possible and continue growing until transfer to the release pen, which are built to the same specifications. So transfer day to the release pen takes place when the birds are between 45 and 55 days old, generally. Having kept human interaction to a minimum during the rearing process, transfer day does need a number of people. And we divide the pen with a soft net to reduce available space for the birds to fly, and then catch 2 birds at a time, generally. So to reduce the handling time and stress to the birds, we weigh them in the transport boxes by weighing the boxes before and after the bird is secure. The flag and weight are written on the box, and those chosen for tagging are highlighted. So one bird is examined by the vet, and the other one given to colleagues at the BTO who take required measurements and checks for health, and they also decide which birds will get a satellite tag at this stage. So birds are transported in those individual boxes and released into the enclosure at the release site. And they'll acclimatise here for about a week before being released. The birds selected for tagging are processed last before joining the rest of the cohort in the pen. So yeah, final handling of any birds at this stage. So I'd just like to say thanks to all the partners involved in the Norfolk Headstarting project, and to Pensthorpe Conservation Trust for supporting with hosting the rearing facility. Now Pensthorpe has withdrawn from the project, so I'd like to give a special thanks also to Marsh Farm at Burnham Deepdale for offering a new home and forming a conservation trust dedicated just to species conservation. So hopefully securing the long-term goals for this project. So yeah, big thanks to everyone. And that's it really. Thank you very much for listening to the presentation. I hope it's helpful as an introduction to the workshop. And yeah, it'll be great to hear others' experiences in this session. Thanks very much.